Russian forces have stepped up their attacks across Ukraine, including firing cruise missiles at the southern port city of Odesa. And they have also resumed the bombardment of the besieged steel plant in Mariupol after the remaining women, children, and older adults were evacuated. Now, observers believe Moscow aims to make symbolic gains before Monday's anniversary of the Soviet Union victory over Nazi Germany in World War II. The most intense attacks have been in eastern Ukraine, where many people have been left homeless.
Clothes hang from blasted trees in the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, a grim decoration for a war nobody here is celebrating. Residents survey the damage following another Russian airstrike. Svetlana has come to collect belongings from what was once her home. How can I survive with that? This was my parents' house. My sister was living here. I was living here too. People are homeless now, and 2 of our neighbors were killed. They're killing people. As Ukrainian forces go on the offensive, intense battles in the eastern Donetsk region have seen front lines shifting village by village. 30 kilometers away in the town of Konstantinivka, Vasily Burlutsky says he ran to protect his 3 children who were sleeping in another room when shelling began. To civilians like these, it makes little difference whose ordnance is falling on their homes and schools. Everything should be normal, like it is for everybody else. What can we do now? Who's guilty? I don't know. Who should I blame for this? Barrages of Russian rockets also rained down on Kharkiv, destroying civilian targets, including a museum, even as Ukrainian forces around the city drove the Russians back. Numerous Russian rockets also struck civilian targets in the port of Odesa. Some observers say Vladimir Putin wants a symbolic victory to celebrate on May 9th, the day that Russia commemorates victory over Nazi Germany at the end of World War II. The Azovstal factory complex, last bastion of Ukraine's forces in Mariupol, looks like his most likely target. The last civilians who'd been trapped in the plant's underground bunkers have now been evacuated and bussed out of Mariupol. President Zelensky says he wants to negotiate safe passage out for all civilians who are still in the ruined city.
And our correspondent Matthias Bollinger is reporting for us from Kyiv. Good to see you, Matthias. Putin is going to want something to celebrate on Victory Day this Monday. How likely is it that claiming victory over Mariupol will be part of that?
It's very likely that he will try to claim victory over Mariupol, and it's also likely that this doesn't really depend on what is happening in the Azov steelworks. We know that fighters are still in there, wounded fighters, but as also active fighters, and that the attacks on the steelworks have intensified. But we do not really know how far they have gotten, and whether it's likely that they will be able to control the whole plant within these 24 hours that we have until the 9th of May. It's very difficult to say, but I don't see really what would prevent them to declare victory, even if they are not in control of the steelworks. They have been saying a lot of things, and they haven't been very compliant to facts in this regard. I think the 9th of May is very symbolic, and we are hearing that they're preparing for some kind of a celebration in Mariupol. It remains to be seen how these celebrations look like in this actual situation, but this is a highly symbolic city.
And looking at the situation in Ukraine more broadly, are you seeing signs that Russian attacks are indeed increasing?
Definitely. There have been a number of rocket attacks on Odessa yesterday and this night. This night we haven't confirmed whether it was rockets, but it was explosions, and we can assume it was rockets because there are there's no artillery nearby or anything. So Odessa has been a target in the past few hours, and we are also seeing intensified fighting in the Donbass region. So it seems that they are trying to achieve as much as they can, or to send signs of strength before this celebration.
Now, it does appear a Ukrainian counteroffensive is also advancing, sending Russian troops fleeing from Kharkiv. What more can you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is the Ukrainian troops have taken quite a few villages north of Kharkiv. That's important because these were the positions from where the city was shelled. So this eases the pressure on the city as well, and it drives the Russian troops further back to the Russian frontier. So we could expect that situation around Kharkiv is easing, while in Donbass it's intensifying.
DW correspondent Matthias Bullinger for us in Kyiv. Thanks as always.
Now, as we mentioned, Russia is preparing for its annual World War II Victory Day celebrations on Monday. The event marks the anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory over Nazi Germany and normally features huge parades of soldiers and military hardware. But with Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine, how appropriate is it to celebrate? We asked people on the streets of Moscow.
The victory parade for the Great Patriotic War is always appropriate. It's our history.
Nobody should forget our ancestors' triumph.
Let's see what military hardware is on show. What we've got. What we still have. But we're not proud. We're not officers.
It's tradition. Every year.
Traditions are important for our generation. That's why we need the parade. The parade is always called for. It's about remembering. Should we kneel before Europe instead? Never. Why shouldn't it be appropriate? What does the 1945 victory have to do with today?
The parade is appropriate. It's an occasion that deserves to be celebrated. The question is how. Of course, events in Ukraine are overshadowing everything. But remembering the past is important. Ukrainians were also part of the victory.
I'm now joined by political scientist Gerhard Mangert. He's a professor of international relations at the University of Innsbruck in Austria. Hello, Gerhard. How will the war in Ukraine affect the celebrations in Moscow?
Well, I do think that Vladimir Putin and the Russian leadership will keep on creating this narrative that what the Soviet Union did during World War II, defending the country against a Nazi assault, Russia is now doing it in Ukraine, because from the very start, Putin has argued that Russia needs to liberate the people of the Donbass because they are suffering a genocide by Nazis. So he has closely knitted these two wars together, the Great Patriotic War and the war in Ukraine. And we will see more of that tomorrow. He will actually appeal to the Russian citizens to show unity, to show resolve, to stand together, to remain united in this today's fight against Nazis, as the Russians see it, which of course is totally absurd.
So what more can we expect from President Putin's speech on Victory Day tomorrow?
Well, a lot of speculation has emerged over the past weeks, namely that he will declare war tomorrow and call for a national mobilization of the military reserve. I don't think so. If he would really declare that the special military operation, as it has been called so far in the Russian Federation, now turns into a war, this would also mean that he, actually admits that the Russian military campaign in Ukraine has so far failed very strongly, that the Russian army did very miserably, and that's something that he definitely does not want to admit, but would admit if he now turns this operation into a war. And I also don't think that we will see a national mobilization announcement tomorrow, because national mobilization of the reserve, that will take months to bring those forces, untrained forces, to the war scene, to the war theater in Ukraine. And I don't think this would help Russia in the short term to achieve its main objective, namely to occupy the whole of the Donbass.
So here's the thing. President Putin seems to still have a lot of support in Russia. But how much support could he still have among the population if the effects of the sanctions become even stronger?
Well, we definitely cannot really rely on opinion polls we get from Russia, not even from the opposition-friendly Levada Center. But still, this polling station says that about 73% support the so-called special military operation in Ukraine, and support for Vladimir Putin as the president is more than 80%. Well, we cannot completely rely on this data, but it's definitely true that particularly those segments of Russia's population who are informed by Russian state propaganda, by TV state propaganda, are in support of this action. They believe the official narrative that Russia had no choice but to defend itself against Ukraine, which had become a puppet of Western aggression against Russia. So there's considerable support still in those segments of the population who rely on government information. But I also think that parts of the population are accepting this war. They don't like it, they don't want it, but they simply accept it because they are politically apathetic and have no interest to demonstrate against the war publicly. And only a small portion of the population actually is opposed to the war, the liberal-minded, more well-to-do, well-educated urban citizens of Russia.
So as it stands now, President Putin is ramping up his attacks in Ukraine. What is he expecting before May Day tomorrow?
Well, we have seen that the assault has intensified over the past 2 days and will intensify in the coming days as well. But the minimum goal of Russia's military attack, namely to occupy the whole of the Donbass, will not be reached by tomorrow. So there's no success that he can announce tomorrow, no real success, no achievements so far. But I don't think he will really need to send a message to the Russian people that Russia has been successful in this war. I think it will suffice to appeal to the Russian people to stay united in today's fight against the Nazis. This official narrative, which, as I've said, is very much absurd, but very much present in the Russian official media.
Okay. Gerhard Mangert, Professor for International Relations at the University of Innsbruck in Austria. Thank you. As many as 60 people are missing and feared dead after a Russian airstrike hit a village school in eastern Ukraine. According to regional officials, around 90 people were sheltering in the building when it was bombed on Saturday afternoon. Rescuers have already pulled 30 survivors as well as 2 bodies from the rubble. Heavy fighting near the village, which lies about 11 kilometers from the front line in the Luhansk region, reportedly hindered rescue efforts overnight. Let's get more on this with our correspondent Emmanuel Shaz in the western city of Lviv. Emmanuel, Russian forces appear under pressure for something Putin can celebrate on Victory Day this Monday. We've just seen that attack on a school in Luhansk. Is Russia ramping up its assault?
It definitely is, and it's something the Ukrainian authorities had feared would happen today on May 8th and tomorrow on May 9th, which is for Russia Victory Day. You mentioned this school. If indeed it is found out that those 60 people under the rubble are all dead, as it is feared to have happened, well, this would be yet another war crime to be investigated by the international authorities and also by Ukraine itself. 90 people had taken shelter in that school. A school is no military target, with Russia having said since the beginning of the war that it was targeting critical infrastructures, strategic infrastructures. A school is no such thing. And rescuers said that last night they could pull out 30 people from out of the rubble. There's 7 people injured, but the 60 others are believed to be dead.
And fighting is still raging on the Eastern Front. What are you hearing from the front line?
Exactly. Fighting still raging, with the Ukrainian armed forces gaining ground in areas such as the surroundings of Kharkiv, but also near Kherson, which has been occupied for weeks now by Russian troops. Russia has installed in the province of Kherson the Russian currency, the Russian coat of arms for Kherson, and also we've just just learned today that they've also instated an anti-missile base, anti-airstrike missile base around Kherson. So really we're expecting to see more fights in that area in the coming hours, in the coming days.
That definitely seems to be the case because Ukrainian authorities have warned residents to brace for more airstrikes over the weekend. What's it like on the ground?
Well, you can see behind me, I'm here in Lviv in western Ukraine, and people go on with their daily life, but Ukrainian authorities have warned that the number of airstrike alerts would probably increase over the weekend due to May 8th and May 9th, the so-called Victory Day for Russia, and authorities fear that people are just getting accustomed to those air raid alerts and that people don't take shelter, don't take it seriously enough, and they've really said it again and again those past few days. They've told people that they really have to take shelter because more airstrikes are feared not only in the east but also in central and western Ukraine.
Emmanuel Shaz in Lviv, thank you.
The Ukraine war has taken a huge toll on people there, but not only. Many animals are also suffering immensely. One shelter in the western city of Lviv used to rescue wildlife, but has since taken in more than 1,000 pets who have lost their owners. DW correspondent Emmanuel Chaz paid a visit.
They have lost their owners. Some were abandoned in Lviv's train station, others evacuated from eastern Ukraine by NGOs or civilians. For those pets too, war has taken its toll.
One woman from Severodonetsk go to us with 20 cats and 3 dogs. She and she son, just 2 people, take care on about 20 cats and 3 dogs.
Since the war started, over 1,000 animals have been evacuated to this Lviv shelter. These dogs were part of a group of 20 rescued from the southern city of Mykolaiv. They are very sociable, but other animals are traumatized by what they have been through. Volunteers in the shelter rely on donations and also on hands-on help from fellow Lviv residents.
Many volunteers from Lviv go to us and say what I can help you. Some of them can go for a walk with dogs because it's like 150 dogs.
People sometimes queue for hours to walk the dogs twice a day.
I read in Instagram that these dogs will come from Kyiv, from Bucha, from Irpin. It broke my heart, and I come to this place to give food, to give time from this dog.
Over the weeks, Marta has developed a special bond with Pegas. His previous owners remain unreachable. Milena comes from Spain and has spent the last 2 months helping people in badly affected areas and bringing abandoned animals to safety.
We take a lot of dogs out for a walk every day. This one, for example, was a little timid. He was very small and he didn't move. He was always in a corner. And every day I tried to earn his trust. Until one day I was able to get him out. He wouldn't even let me pick him up. And now he doesn't leave me. So let's see if we can adopt him.
Volunteers provide care, vaccinations, and thoroughly screens applicants for adoption. In the wake of the war, people all around the world have become interested in Ukraine and in the fate of its animals.
It's like very popular, have cats and dogs from the Ukraine.
For now, Lviv's shelters are coping with the situation. But as the war drags on, every day more animals in need arrive, and the need for more support to accommodate them also grows more dire.